And everyone knows what it meant on immigration, or at least that's what people thought. Because what followed from the previous government, starting with the people who used that slogan, was the complete opposite. Between 2019 and 2023, even as they were going round our country, telling people with a straight face that they would get immigration down, net migration quadrupled until in 2023 it reached nearly 1 million. That's about the population of Birmingham, our second largest city. That's not control, it's chaos. And look, they must answer for themselves. But I don't think that you can do something like that by accident. It was a choice made even as they told you, told the country, they were doing the opposite. A one-nation experiment in open borders, conducted on a country that voted for control. Well, no more. Today, this Labour government is shutting down the lab. The experiment is over. We will deliver what you've asked for time and again, and we will take back control of our borders. And let me tell you why. Because I know, on a day like today, people who like politics will try to make this all about politics, about this or that strategy, targeting these voters, responding to that party. No. I'm doing this because it is right, because it is fair, and because it is what I believe in. Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument. And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government. It's about fairness. And look, I mean, migration is part of Britain's national story. We talked last week about the great rebuilding of this country after the war. Migrants were part of that, and they make a massive contribution today. And you will never hear me denigrate that. But when people come to our country, they should also commit to integration, to learning our language. And our system should actively distinguish between those that do and those that don't. I think that's fair. Equally, Britain must compete for the best talent in the world, in science, in technology, in healthcare. You can't simply pull up a drawbridge, let nobody in, and think that's an economy that would work. That would hurt the pay packets of working people without question. But at the same time, we do have to ask why parts of our economy seem almost addicted to importing cheap labour, rather than investing in the skills of people who are here and want a good job in their community. Sectors like engineering, where visas have rocketed while apprenticeships have plummeted. Is that fair to Britain? Is that fair to young people weighing up their future to miss out on those apprentices? To see colleges in their community almost entirely dedicated to one-year courses for overseas students? No, I don't think that it is. And truth be told, I don't think anybody does. Yet that is the Britain this broken system has created. So as this white paper sets out, every area of the immigration system, work, family and study, will be tightened up so we have more control. Skill requirements raised to degree level. English language requirements across all routes, including for dependents. The time it takes to acquire settled status extended from 5 years to 10. And enforcement tougher than ever, because fair rules must be followed. This plan means migration will fall. That's a promise. But I want to be very clear on this. If we do need to take further steps, if we do need to do more to release pressure on housing and our public services, then mark my words, we will. But it's not just about numbers, because the chaos of the previous government also changed the nature of immigration in this country. Fewer people who make a strong economic contribution, more who work in parts of our economy that put downward pressure on wages. So perhaps the biggest shift in this white paper is that we will finally honour what take back control meant and begin to choose who comes here, so that migration works for our national interest. You know, this is where the whole debate is skewed, as if some people think controlling immigration is reining in a sort of natural freedom, rather than the basic and reasonable responsibility of government to make choices that work for a nation's economy. And for years, this seems to have muddled our thinking. But let me be clear, it ends now. We will create a migration system that is controlled, selective, and fair. A clean break with the past that links access to visas directly to investment in homegrown skills. So that if a business wants to bring people in from abroad, they must first invest in Britain. But also, so settlement becomes a privilege that is earned, not a right. Easier if you make a contribution, if you work, pay in, and help rebuild our country. Now, some people may even be against that. But I think for the vast majority of people in this country, that is what they have long wanted to see. An immigration system that is fair, that works for our national interest, and that restores common sense and control to our borders. That is what this white paper will deliver. Lower net migration, higher skills, backing British workers. The start of repairing our social contract, which the chaos and cynicism of the last government did so much to undermine. Thank you. I will now take a number of questions from the media. I've got a hopefully accurate list here, starting with Chris Mason, BBC.
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason, BBC News. Let's be clear, are you promising today that net migration will fall every year between now and the next election, come what may?
Well, I'm promising it will fall significantly, and I do want to get it down by the end of this Parliament significantly. That is what this plan is intended to achieve, the complete opposite of what you saw in the last 4 years. It is frankly incredible that net migration quadrupled in 4 short years to nearly 1 million. This white paper, these plans bring it back into control. make sure it's controlled, that is selective, that we decide who comes to this country, and that it is fair, and that's what we will do. Significant reduction in immigration. And as I've indicated, if it becomes necessary to take further measures, then that's what we will do. Thank you. Robert, ITV.
Robert Beston, ITV. Prime Minister, you know that countries that want to grow are in a global race for top talent. Your number one priority is growth. Haven't you shot yourself in the foot by insisting that those who want to be citizens now have to live here twice as long as those who want to be American citizens? And if I may, we've just heard that there will be a 90-day massive reduction in the tariffs that China and America are imposing on each other. Are you relieved that at least temporarily they've laid down their economic arms?
Well, let me take both those points, but I'm not encouraging two questions each because we've got to just get through this. On the growth question, I do think this is worth taking some time on, because the theory that higher migration numbers necessarily leads to higher growth has been tested in the last 4 years. So we've had the highest net migration when the last government lost control to nearly 1 million.
I'm always looking for new...
That link doesn't hold on that evidence. The second thing is that this white paper is not just a white paper on immigration, it's also a white paper that deals with skills and training. And one of the reasons that we've had stagnant growth, in my view, for years, is because we've underinvested chronically in skills and growth. So by putting skills and growth into the same plan as migration, which is something businesses have been asking for years, you actually answer the growth question as well. And I should say, as a footnote to that, as you heard in the speech and you'll see in the white paper, in relation to high talent, where we want the very best into the country, we will have routes to get that talent into this country. And I think there's real potential for us to do so in the current environment, and we intend to do so. On the question of the China tariffs, I just saw something flash up in the room back there. I'm not across the complete detail. I'm very pleased, obviously, that we struck our trade deal with the US last week, which will be measured in very many thousands of jobs and billions of pounds into our economy. Thank you, Robert. Sam from Sky. Sam.
Sam Kurtz, Prime Minister, just to pick up on growth and migration. One of the reasons that we've had a laxer migration policy for years is because of basically the Treasury view. Successive chancellors, their fiscal rules, and the way that that interacts with the official forecasts means it's always been an easy win to have more growth by having more people in the country. What's your message today to the Treasury, to the OBR, and are you doing anything to actually change the way that they work and look at all this stuff and calculate the cost-benefit analysis of growth and migration?
Yeah, well, thank you, Sam. Just succinctly, and then adding to the answer I just gave. Firstly, the pure theory, if you like, that simply higher migration numbers necessarily leads to higher growth, I think has been tested in the last 4 years. We quadrupled in actually a very short period of time. And, you know, I think whatever political persuasion you are, it is quite extraordinary that net migration quadrupled in 4 years. We've never seen that before in this country, but growth didn't shift. It stayed stagnant. Secondly, this point about skills and migration, what businesses have been calling out for a long time is link migration to the skills and training that we need in this country. In the past, governments have done sort of knee-jerk reductions without making that link. We're making that link in this paper, which is really important in terms of where we go with the economy, because I do think it's underinvestment in those areas that's caused a lot of the problem. The other thing that the paper is doing is readjusting the model, because it's got to a place now where there's many more low skilled jobs rather than high skilled jobs. So by adjusting the threshold for skills, this allows migration to be in the areas of high skills, which are more likely to make a significant contribution to our economy. Thank you very much, Sam. I've got Gary from Channel 4.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Have you been on a bit of a journey yourself on this? Did you used to believe that higher immigration led to higher growth? Would Keir Starmer a few years ago have talked about an island of strangers? Are you one of the people who now thinks that Article 8 of the ECHR is actually a problem and not something that's just exaggerated by other people?
Well, Gary, thank you very much. I invite you to dig out my conference speech at Labour Party conference. I know you remember them all. But 3 years ago now, I think it was, when I made the very political argument that I've made this morning, which is that take back control, understanding why you need control, selection and a fair immigration is a Labour argument. And once you've dug out that transcript, there's then the speech I made to the CBI, I think about 3 years ago, making the same argument in relation to business, saying too many businesses, in my view, are too dependent on migration rather than training and skilling up people in this country. And that was, I was signalling to the CBI then that would change under a Labour government. So there's a core consistency through here. On Article 8, yeah, we do want to ensure that the right balance is made in migration cases in relation to the national interest. There's a balance set out in legislation already. That needs to be adjusted, in my view, and that's what we will do. Thank you, Gary. Chris Hope, sorry. There's a lot of Chris's.
Chris Hope, GB News. Prime Minister, we've been here before, haven't we? There have been 3 immigration acts since 2014. The Immigration Act in 2014 and 2016 both aimed to reduce immigration. They both failed. Why on earth should GB News viewers think you're going to succeed? And why not give us a promise right now? Why give us a fixed target right now, not a promise, so we can judge you on success? The Tories at least did that, but they failed.
Well, look, the difference here, this is the most comprehensive plan that has been put forward. It's been forward to end the Tory sort of wide open borders experiment that we have had. You're right about that. And it looks at all routes, and it's comprehensive, and it does the hard yards of linking skills and business to what we need to do with the economy. So it's not a narrow look just at the numbers, it puts them in their proper context. On the question, which we do want to significantly reduce migration, I'm absolutely making clear that's what it will do, and that if we need to go further, we will. So that's the promise I make to your viewers. I don't think it's sensible to put a hard-edged cap on it. That has been done in one form or another for the best part of 10 years by different prime ministers. The only thing that links those prime ministers and the various caps or quotas or limits they put in place is every single one of them failed. And therefore, going down the failed route is not a sensible way for me. As with everything that I do, serious, pragmatic, looking at the things that will actually make a material difference. Thank you, Chris. Jerry from The Times.
Prime Minister Gary Scott from The Times. What is your message to the 9 million inactive adults in the UK at the moment who might not think that they should take work in a care home, for example, and also to some of your Labour MPs who might be squeamish about Labour government taking a tough line on immigration?
Well, firstly, that's acknowledged within that 9 million there are some people who can't work, and we need to be clear about that from the start. But there are others who can, and as we've set out in our welfare provisions, the principles are clear. Where people can't work and are unlikely to be able to work, they should be protected and supported. But where people can get into work, they should be supported. The current system does the opposite, and so we will support them into work with a £1 billion package, the right to try, and measures like that. And that if you can work, you should work. And I do think that this white paper should be seen in conjunction with what we're doing on welfare. And on squeamishness, I actually think that the Labour Party has as core values the idea that immigration should be controlled, that it should be selective. We should be choosing who we want, higher skills, the high talent routes into our country. And it must be fair. They're basic Labour arguments and concepts for many, many years. Thank you. I've got Jack from The Sun. Jack.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You said just now this is a comprehensive plan to bring down legal migration. You also said in the election you had a comprehensive plan to bring down illegal migration, and so far it seems that isn't working. Small boat crossings are going up on your watch. So why should voters think that your plan to bring down legal migration will fare any better, especially given you're considering an EU youth mobility scheme, which could actually increase it?
Well, let's tackle that head on, because nobody should be getting in a small boat to cross over the channel and illegally entering this country. The last government lost control of the borders. It falls to this government to clear up that mess in the same way we're clearing up all the other messes that they left behind. I am convinced that the way to do that is to take down the gangs that are running the vile trade. And for that reason, we've drafted and put before Parliament a borders bill, which follows through on the promises I made, which is we need to give law enforcement greater powers, going down the counter-terrorism powers. The thing that distinguishes counter-terrorism from other law enforcement is you can take action earlier. You can be preemptive. You can operate in a completely different way. That's why we've gone for a package that allows law enforcement to get in much earlier. That is going through Parliament. Who is voting against that? The Tories, who caused the problem in the first place. Thank you, Jack. Martin from the Daily Mail. Martin.
Prime Minister Martin Beckford from the Daily Mail. Gary asked if you've been on a journey on net migration. Similarly, you talked about tough enforcement. One of today's measures is for foreign nationals convicted of any offence to be considered for deportation. Yet just 5 years ago, you signed a letter calling for the halt to a deportation flight that contained, amongst others, 2 people convicted of rape and 3 of GBH. Your views have changed, haven't they?
No, I've always said that those who commit offences should be deported. I ran the Crown Prosecution Service for 5 years between 2008 and 2013, and it fell to my prosecutors on my instructions to ask for the deportations in the first place in the Crown courts. So I've been really clear. I've been in charge of cases where we routinely asked for the judge, because that's the way the system operated in those days, to add to the sentence an order at the end that there should be a deportation. So what's that? That's going back the best part of 20 years. Thank you very much. And I've got Michael from the Daily Express.
Thank you.
Michael.
Does going further mean disentangling ourselves from the ECHR and disapplying human rights laws in immigration cases?
No. I don't think that is necessary. I also remind myself that the international agreements we've signed have given us the basis for the deals that we've struck on illegal migration. So the Home Secretary has moved fast, working with other countries, to put in place materially improved deals with other countries in relation to migration. That would not have been possible if we had been saying at the same time we're about to withdraw from our international obligations. I could give you many more examples than that, but you can't strike those deals with other countries to work more closely together on law enforcement to smash the gangs, and to work on returns agreements, which is what we want to do, if in the next breath you're saying you don't believe in international law. If you do, you can strike the deals. If you don't, you can't. And one of the features of the last government is they struggled to strike these deals because other countries said, if you don't comply with international law, why should we write and agree an international agreement with you, which to me is plain common sense. Thank you very much. Thank you.